So I turned that counterclockwise until I saw, I don't know, I hope the camera can pick this up, but there's an FT, and there's a line between them. The line is what I'm going by. The FT is for front timing, and they're like laying on their side. It's like you tipped them to the left and laid them on their side. It's just so you can see them better when they're all in this hole. And you want that line, the middle line, right across the center of the hole. In fact, I think on the left, if you can pick it up, there's a little wee bump there. It looks like a little bump right there. So you want that straight line right even with that. That means the top dead center's up there, and it's on a compression stroke. So those two valves will be closed because that's when it's going to fire. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but it's right on. Now, to make sure that cylinder is on the compression stroke, come over to this side because we're working with the front cylinder. Yeah, this way. Wait till I get the flashlight. Forgot it. I need a big light on both sides, really, but this'll work. Now, if you look down the spark plug hole, I can see the top of the piston, and it's up. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but I can see the top of the piston. It's up close to me. It's right up to the little bit below the hole of the spark plug. Now, to make sure, I can take this long screwdriver, very careful, easy, and I just put it down that hole until I touch the top of the cylinder. Right there it is. If I'm not sure, I would turn that one circle around, line the mark up, and check it again. In fact, I ain't sure if I'm on top dead center. I might have to check mine. But the piston will be up close. I'm going to go one more revolution because I think it feels like it's down quite a way. No, maybe not too much. It's just something you got to judge. But maybe I'll go around one more time and see. So I've made one more revolution, complete revolution on that, counterclockwise, lined up the mark, come back up, and now I can tell that cylinder is right there. The piston is right on top of the cylinder. I can see it. I can see it real plain. So let me try with the screwdriver, putting it in real easy. I can't hold the light and everything at the same time. Yeah, it feels the same. So that was on the top. So I definitely got it on the top. That's important. Yeah, I can see it right there. I don't know if the camera can pick it up. Yep, top of the piston's right there. My mark is on the FT. So now I'm ready to come over to this. I have a rag. I'll put my rag back down in there, so if I drop a bolt down in there, it won't go down in the cylinder. And what I'll do is now I'll take those two bolts out of that cover, lift it off, and the tappets will be right there. There'll be one rocker thing, but it'll split off into two. Looks like a snake's tongue for two valves. I'm still on the front cylinder, and this is the exhaust. The pipe's right down here, so this is the exhaust. I took the cover off. There's two bolts, and you can see the gasket. It's an O-ring. This cover goes on this way with the big part there in the front. I put a dot on it just so I know that's in the front. So now I've got that all set for the with the timing, top dead center. You can see that has a little bit of play in it. Some guys will say that these tighten up on them in time, and they really can't go by this feeling of loose to find where to adjust them. But you have to go by the marks, top dead center looking down in the cylinder. Once you get it, right now what I'm going to do is take these two, see they go up into one part for two valves. So what I'm going to do is loosen both of these lock nuts. Then I'm going to show something that most people don't do, and how to set them the easy way. Easier for me than to try to get a filler gauge down in there. So let me loosen them two nuts. So I have these two lock nuts both loose. Now what I'm going to do is, I have a card I made, a diagram for my bike, and you can see the front, and I have the exhaust 7 to 9 thousandths. The next one back is a 3 to 5, another 3 to 5 intake, exhaust 7 to 9. As I do them, I mark set in that box so I know I've done them, because I just want to keep track of it. Once I'm done with it, I'm done. Now the thing is, very carefully here, I know I want to set this between 7 and 9. I don't want it at 7. I'd rather have it on the big side, about 8 or so. But what I'm going to do is very carefully unscrew this. I'm going to take the nut off first, and I am holding it. I do not want it to drop down inside. You have to make sure you don't let go of it. I should be doing it with two hands. There's the lock nut. Now just this one, the book says you have to check your book 7 to 9 on this exhaust. Well, I don't know how many turns I have to turn this. I do now, but I didn't back when I first did it. So what I do is I take one of these and I completely unscrew it, and you really got to hold on to it and make sure you don't drop it down inside. Put a rag down in around there or anything, and there is what I'm going to be working with, this and this nut. So let's take it over to the vise, and then I can show how I can tell how many turns per thousandths. So I'm over at my vise, and I have my tappet out of the motorcycle. You can see the top has the little square head that you adjust it. There's the lock nut. On the bottom it's a little rounded, and that's where it sets onto the valve to open and close it. And this is what you're using to set it with. Now what I need to know is, if I put that screw on there, it fits right on that head. When I turn this, how much am I turning it? Like for a quarter turn, half a turn, around in there is what I want to know. I need to know how many thousandths this moves up and down. So to do this, I made a card. Once I find it out, I want to write it down right away so I know. But you need this. If you might have one. If you don't, go to Harbor Freight. This base part is $12. The indicators $17. So say with tax and everything you spend $32. But imagine what you're going to save if you do this yourself. The next time you ever have to do it, or another bike, you keep this, you always have it. So now what I'm going to do is, it goes in the motorcycle like this. I'm going to put it the other way. I'm going to turn it up. Now the valve would be here. This would be where I'm adjusting it. And I'm going to put that nut in the lathe and just barely tighten it. I don't want to squeeze it too hard. So I'm going to put it in there. I'm going to move this out of the way. You can see I'm going to put that in there just snug. I don't want to squeeze it real hard. Right there. Now I can take this stick, put it up under here. My camera's kind of in my way, so I got to get down, look up at it. Fine. Okay. Now right there, I am on it, and you can see I can turn this up and down with my square stick. Being square, I can tell that's a quarter of a turn, that's a half a turn. So what I'm going to do now is set the indicator on this, so when I turn it, I'll know how many thousandths it is. And this just takes a little time setting up I hope the camera can pick this up the way I'm trying to do it. And when you're filming it, it's going to take longer than actual doing it by yourself. Okay, right there it is. It's right on it. I could go down a little bit lower with this to get some spring to it, because this is spring loaded. And I want to get that right in the center of there. Now it's on the indicator. It almost come out in the 0, but I can turn this till it's zeroed out. Excuse me for getting in front of the camera. Okay, I've got it right on 0. Perfect. Now I'm going to very carefully put my stick up under there again, and I've got to get down here to see it. There, it's on it. And it just happened. Okay, you can see how it's moving. I can move it. Okay, right there is 0. I got to get in front of the camera a minute just to see. And I don't want to push up on it because it makes a difference. And I'm just turning it back and forth to 0. Right there is 0. Now this flat is towards me just a hair. So when I turn it, the next flat will be about that way. So there is a 1/4 of a turn right there. And there is 7 thousandths. So a 1/4 of a turn is 7. Half ought to be 14. So if I go another 1/4 to about there, there it is, just about 14. So now I know when I adjust this how much to turn it. So it's 7 to 9 I want, so a 1/4 turns 7. So if I go back to 0, I like to go past and then come back up to it right about there. Now let's see, if I want about, say, 8 or 9, I'm shooting for 8 or 9. I always go a little bit on a big gap for these. So there's a 1/4, just a hair more. There it is, about 8 thousandths. I could even go a little more. There it is, 8. So 7 to 9. I'm in the ballpark right there. I'll go back to 0, go past it, come back up to it. And when I have it in the bike, I'm going to do that a couple times, adjust it. Okay, right there, 0. There's a 1/4. A little more. Right there's 8 thousandths. I keep hitting 8. So it's a 1/4 turn and just a little more is my 8 thousandths. So 1/4 turn is 7. Now just for the heck of it, I'll go back. Take it to 0. I have to get in front of the camera again. Right on 0. Now I'm going to try for a half. I should get probably 14. I think I did it. There's 1/4, a half. I'm not pushing up on it. I'm holding it real easy. There you go. It's exactly 14. So that shows me what that is. Now that's the intake. The exhaust, these all should be the same. Now that's what I'm imagining. But when I first did it, I took an exhaust one out and checked it. It was identical. 1/4 turn was 7 thousandths. So I know they're all the same. So now I can go with this and that little one I made, and I can adjust that. It's going to come out perfect. I don't have to get that filler gauge in there. Am I filling it? Am I not filling it? This will tell me precisely what it is. And that's the way I did it. Now any bike, any year, like mine's 2012, you might have one that's way older. You can put that in there and check it to make sure you're turning it. And you only spend $32. And it's going to be a lot more to take it to the shop and get them to set them, because it's involved. It's a lot of work. And they're charging you for their time and everything mostly. So the O-rings and the caps are fine. I thought there was gaskets. There was O-rings, because it's been a while since I've done this. So now I'm ready to put it in and set it. So as you can see, I screwed this one back in. You can see the play in there. I backed this one. I need to back it out. I can't get it turned, so that's why I made this little wee one with the screw in it, super glue, string on it, super glue. If I drop it, it ain't going no place. I got to get back in here. I have the lock nut loose, and you have to take my word for it. I'm getting it back in there, and I'm going to unscrew it. It's coming. I want them back off so that I have a lot of play in here. Now, I know that's way too much play, but that's where I'm going to start from. So I find a square, and I start turning this in real easy till I keep the nut backed off. Get my string out of the way. I just keep turning it in, backing off the nut. Right there. Now make sure my nut turns so it's not locked. Right there. Right there, I'm just bottomed. I'm not torquing it or nothing like that. Now I want to get this string out of the way. So, now, put this back on here. It turned. That's fine. Now, I turn it down. I turn it back and forth a couple times, and I can feel when it just bottoms. It's just touching that valve. So, you can see my flat is facing this way. It's not flat perfectly in line with me. It's over that way a little bit. So, a quarter of a turn, that's 7. A little bit more is my 8 or 9. Turn the nut down. That should be it. I can hold this and lock the nut. But what I like to do is, here's the way I do it. Take it back in. It's just touching. Okay. This flat is towards me. That is 7, 8, 9, about right there. I do it about 3 times. There. I can see my flat. Turn it. That flat's in the same place at 7. A little more. That's 8 or 9. Turn the nut down. Now the flat's almost straight towards me. That's what I want to watch. It takes for this one a 10mm wrench. I go in there. Now I'm holding this square that way a little bit. Just put a little pressure on it just so when I tighten this it don't turn. That's it. Now that one's set. I can feel it. Now I do the same thing to the other one. So that's why I have this little stick, because you can't get anything back in there. And Jason, it was Jason that showed this. Thank goodness for him. So I put his with my setup and the setup I showed you in the Vise. That was my idea to see. Now with my fingers back in there, I don't know if you can see it real good, but I'm on it and I'm turning it in. Let me see. Yeah, it's going. That is a tight place back in there. You got hoses and everything right above you. Like I said, I don't know how you get a filler gauge in there, but this is going to do it. Okay. I'll get my string out of the way. Now, I'm ready to go at it. This is going to be to set it. I'm going to try to keep my fingers out of the way. I don't know if I can. Okay, I'm moving it back and forth. I have to hold it with both fingers. But I'm just bottomed out right there. Now you can see there isn't a flat towards me. It's the edge. It's the line. That line right there is towards me. So if I turn this one out to where it's lined, and then a little more, that should be about 8 thousandths. So I'm going to do it a couple times to make sure I got the filling. There is this line. The flat's down this way. So that line, that corner, is right towards me. So you can see I'm turning it. There's a corner. That's 7. A little bit more. That should be about 8. 8 or 9. Now I'm going to turn the nut down. I'm making sure that piece of wood isn't turning. There. I just barely got it tightened up. Now what I want to do is get my fingers in there to hold it tight. Get back on it. Takes a little time. Now if you feel it ain't right, you can always loosen it back up and go for it again. There it is. That should be about 8 thousandths. You can hear it's got play. And they're both moving together, so that's perfect. That's where it should be. Now I'll put that cover on so I don't get nothing in it. I'll go to this cover up here. It'll be the intake, so it has to be 3 to 5. So it won't be a complete quarter turn. It'll be between, it'll be a little less than a quarter turn, and it should be perfect because a quarter turn was 7 thousandths. So a little less than a quarter turn. Lock them two the same way. Lock them down. It'll be set. So I have the cap back on, and when you put these two 8mm bolts in, make sure that you tighten them in a back and forth pattern. Like everything else, you want to pull it down evenly. And when you tighten these, remember you're into aluminum down here, not steel. So you snug them up and just a little more. Tighten them a little more, that's it. You don't have to grab them and tighten them. When you first do this, if it's like mine, they were all so tight, it was unbelievable. You can't really get a torque wrench in here, back in here. It's just about impossible. Now you see I used a little stick for adjusting this one. Now this one back here, I think I can get down through the frame, down through here, to adjust it once I have the cap off. So that's the long one. That's why it's so long. I can reach down in there and do it. But I think this one is the tightest. Now I'll set this one. Then what I'll do is I'll turn it and do the back ones. You have to turn your timing. There's another mark to go by. And then I can put the plugs in and start putting it back together. And as I go, I'll clean it. But that isn't too bad. I mean, like I said, he told me $320, and I'm like, holy man. I mean, it's a lot of work. But if you can do it yourself, and just like I showed there, you can take it out, you can check it in the vise. You need about $32 for the indicator and base, but it's sure worth it compared to how much money you're going to save by doing it yourself. Take it out, put your rags in there, put a rag down in there, work it in a little bit. Take that thing out, put it in the vise, check it several times. And that one I did over there, the far one, after I did them and I showed it, that one back there, I wasn't positive if the filling was right, so I went back and I redid it, because then I have both hands there and I can really tell. I was trying to reach in there and watch I don't bump the camera and everything, so I redid it and it's perfect. And I can just fill up and down. Now, you fill this up and down. You could even leave this cap off if you want to do this one over here, but lay a rag over it. And what you can do is, this is going to be set 3 to 5 thousandths. And then just take it and fill it up and down and fill this one. You'll feel this one is a bigger gap if they're set right. And I mean, your fingers can tell the difference. So I know I set it right. So now I'm going to move on to this one, do the rear one. I'll be ready to put it back together. Now on the back cover, this one back here, you can see the 8mm nut or bolt, but on the other side is a 10mm nut. Now I have no idea, there's a stud up sticking out of it. I have no idea why they did that. So what you want to do is invest in one of these. It's a long arm, even has a light on it and a magnet, because you're going to drop something. I dropped that nut down on the other side, and here it went clear down. It was down on the other side in there between the two cylinders, so it was nothing to pick up with a magnet. But be aware that lid back there is an 8mm on this side bolt, a 10mm nut on the other side. So I have it loosened up ready, and wait till I get the other thing to show. Now, to get this and the other nut loose, I use this little extension. I have a little socket set, and for this side 8mm, and you can see how you can go right down through the frame to get it to unscrew it. So that's pretty nice. So you can get that nut off, and this bolt down through the frame, it's easy to get. So I took the cover off of the front cylinder intake. Now we're on the intake. I've loosened the two nuts. You can see I've turned them, and I screwed them tappets up out a little bit. Now this is even easier to set than the front, because you go clear. I have my rag in my way. There we go. I can put this and clear down through the frame. There I can turn it. So I turn it clear down in just till it touches like the front one. Same thing. I can move the lock nut so I know it's not hitting it. I want to make sure I'm not bottoming out on the lock nut. So I turn it 3 or 4 times to make sure I am right there. Right there's just touching, not putting any tension on it. Now I can look up here above and see the flat on the stick. So I know if I go 1/4 turn, that's 7. It's too much. It's 3 to 5. So I want to go a little bit less than 1/4. So here's bottomed out. There's 1/4 right there, and I go back just a little bit. I ought to be around 5. So I'm going to turn that down, leave my stick here till I get my wrench for tightening it. That's a 10mm. Just to make sure, I'm going to go in again. I want to try it a couple more times. I'm going to back this nut off. I like to do it about 3 times and really get the feel. Okay, back in. That was probably just about right, because there's 1/4. That's too much. I'm looking at this face up here, the square part. It's facing that way. Turn it, face the exact same way. That's 7. Go back a little bit. That's 5. I tighten that down. And I'm holding on the stick. Tighten it up good and tight. There it is. That should be about 5 thousandths. You can hear that. I think the mic will pick it up. But that's me pulling up and down on it. Perfect. So go to the back one. Now this one, the stick has to be out just a little bit. It's hitting something up in there, but it's fine. Turn it down in real easy till it just snugs right there. I reach back in and make sure that nut's loose. I don't want to be bottoming on it. Okay, right there. Now the stick flat is just about straight towards me. So I turn it 1/4, then back a little bit. That ought to be about 5 thousandths, because a full 1/4 turn is 7. And I put it down with my fingers. Get on it with the wrench. Tighten it good. There. That should be it. Now, if I pull it up and down again, either one of them, because they're both joined, it should tap. Perfect. I can just feel it. It's got a little bit of play there. So I can put this lid back on, and this lid's hard to get off. That stud's sticking up, and there's a connector right there above it. But if you swing the lid this way, put it down on the stud, and then kind of pull it back and just play with it, it'll go in. But make sure that O-ring stays in the cup that goes on here, the top cap, and you'll be perfectly fine. So it's not that bad. I mean, that's going to save you a ton of money. It just takes time. Go careful. If you're not sure yourself, definitely don't do it. You have to do this, you know, I'm just showing what I do. So you can follow this and try it, or maybe get somebody else to do it, or like I said, the shop. But me, I'm going to do it myself for 320 bucks. Now, the front ones are done. Covers are back on. That's the easy one. I know what you're going to say. This one's harder. Yes, it is. There's a bolt right here for the cap. On the other side, there's a nut. That is so hard to get at. I had to put the 10 millimeter wrench, if you can see it, right down the cross member of the frame here. It's down underneath there. I had to put it in there. You can only turn it a little bit, but it will come out. Now, when you go to take that cap off, there is this chrome line that goes across here, and it's right down here. There's two 8 millimeter bolts in it. Take them out and make sure the gasket stays there on the motor, and just lift this out of the way. Now you'll be able to get at that other cap up in there. It's up in there now. I'm getting more room when I move that out of the way. That piece right there. There. Now I have the cap loose. I just got to take the nut off, and I think I can go down in the frame to get to the adjusters. But it's going to be close, but I think they're on the right side. So this just takes more time. Now this one in the back there and in here, they both look like that might be 8, and I think this is 8 too. This in here looks like it's going to be pretty decent to get at and adjust. Probably go down through the frame. Might even be able to use my little one in there. But this cap's the hardest one to get at. That's the intake, so that'll be 3 to 5 thousandths. This one will be 7 to 9. So I'm going for this one next. I'm just working my way back. But before I do, I got to turn the timing. But I just want to get the cap off. So I want to get the timing round, and I think it's where it's at. I can see if there's, I just want to see if there's a little bit of play in it. Like I said, a lot of YouTubers say these tighten up as time goes on. And I've always had mine just a little bit loose. But I've readjusted them so I know where they're at. So that's where I'm at right now. So I got the rear cap off of this one back here. You can see it is a son of a gun to get in here. This bolt's all right. The nut on the other side, you got to be careful you don't drop it. You put your fingers down through here, the frame, and in from this way, and you can just barely get it. And you got to be careful. I turned the motor counterclockwise until it was lined up in this hole down here, and it said RT, rear timing. I put it right across the hole, the middle of the hole, the line. Then I come up here, and if I can get in here, I'm going to block the light. Oh wait, if I can, I don't want this thing. This thing's making noise. Let me get it out of the way. And you can hear it tapping. It's loose there. So that's where I want to reset it. It feels like it's probably right, but I'm resetting it while I did all this. Same as the other ones. Loosen these two nuts, turn this out, turn this one out, turn it in, and then give it the right amount. Now remember, this is the intake. This will be the exhaust back here. So 3 to 5 here, 7 to 9 back here. So this one looks like it'll be pretty decent to get at. But this one here, that's a hard getting that cover off. But I want to do it, so I'm going to keep going until I get this thing, all this buttoned up, and then I'll be happy. And if you think you can take that cover off on the other side, like this cover on this one I took off, if you try to take it off the other side, them bolts go clear down through. They're your head bolts. Do not take them off. It ain't going to help you get in there anymore anyway. So leave it there. So now I'm ready to set these valves. I'm going to put the cap back when I'm done. I'm going to do these and it'll be done. So by far, the rear cylinder intake, 3 to 5 thousandths, is the hardest to do. You can get right at the nut here, or bolt, but the nut in the back. I had to take this, go down through the frame. It's a box end wrench, and in there I could get it, and I could just turn it right there. I'm on it, and that's just a little bit of turning at a time, and I got it. Now I can't get it off. There it is. This one here looks like a piece of cake, and when I did them, this one 3 to 5, it seemed bigger than that. It just by feeling it, I can kind of tell it was a little on the big side. So now this one, you can probably hear it. It feels about right, but I've got it opened up. I might as well set them. And this one up in here, I had to use that little wee stick I have with the string on it for in here. I couldn't get down through the frame straight at the tappets. There was no way. So how in the world you can get a filler gauge in there is beyond me. So thanks to Brian saying about using that square thing and how much to turn per thousandths, like a quarter turn, and that is the only way I could set these. And I've worked on bikes for years. I've never had that much of a problem, but wow, it is close. So I set these two, put the cap back on, make sure the O-ring's in there, put it back on, tighten it up. I'm done. And then I'm going to check a few other things, but I'll run it up tomorrow because it's about 2:30 in the morning. I've been working a long time on it. So if you're going to do it, the best thing to do is, like I said, take all this off, follow my instructions, do this one first, because you're fresh at it. You're going to feel better. And that nut on the back side, get your fingers in here, you know, this way, and if you can this way. I think I put one hand here and one hand here, and make sure you don't drop that nut, because it goes down below someplace. You got to find it. And I took my time and everything, got it out, got it back in, put a finger on each side, went in and laid it real easy, turned it little by little, got it started, had it. So be careful with it, but it can be done. I did it, and I did some of it holding the camera, so you can try it if you're up to it. And there it is. The back one's done. This one was quick and easy. It's that one that's the hardest. This one ain't bad. The intake on the front cylinder. The exhaust, it's a little tight. But these three, yeah, these two and this front one, I used this little wee tool here. That one. And this one back in here, it's just, you can just barely get your fingers in. It's the worst. So do it first. Then the intake here, you can get down through the frame. This, that makes it a snap with this long one. But all the rest had to be done with the little one, and especially this one. That is the hardest. The rear intake, 3 to 5 thousandths. But I got them all set. I felt them, moved them up and down. Everything feels good. I'm confident I did it right. So now I can put the plugs back in, and then tomorrow I can run it up, put everything back together. But I'm going to do a lot of cleaning here tonight, and I definitely want to change the oil. I changed regular oil in it, so I definitely want to change the oil in final drive. Might as well do it at the same time. I got to put this back in here. So other than closing it up, that's it. Just reverse all my steps, But I think what I'll do is hook this back up, leave everything else go, put it on the floor. I like to put it down on the floor, loosen the straps, let it on a kickstand, and then leave it till tomorrow. I don't like leaving it up on a stand. It wouldn't hurt, because I have this extra big brace. On one of my videos I show this brace. If you put Harbor Freight mod on it by Himax 2001, you'll see how I made this brace out of a jack, from a floor jack you put like underneath your cellar. And then this cross piece is off of a rip saw, off an old table saw, and it's real strong. That really supports it. But if you have one of these, it's hydraulic, and you let it down clear on the wheels, you figure, well, that's good enough. That thing will bleed down, and a bike will lean one way or the other. Even though the straps are on tight, it'll lean, it'll mark your bike up. I had it done. So either leave it up on it, put it clear down, put it on a kickstand for the night. So that's where I'm at now. It's 20 till 3. I'll probably get in the house in about 20 minutes, so about 3 o'clock in the morning. I forget, I should have looked at what time I started. But it's a lot of work. I mean, it's a full day's work. I can see now why they charge so much. Well, still it's kind of elaborate, but man, I'll tell you what, it's no easy job. But I hope it helps somebody. If it just helps one person, it's worth it. Or, you know, you watch this, it's just entertaining. So, until the next time. Man, what a job. I wouldn't want to do this for a living. No way in hell. I got music in the background. I forgot about it. I'm getting tired. Here's what I'm talking about, this lift. This is a Harbor Freight lift. It looks like a forklift. If I have it clear down, it's sitting on the wheels. Now say I loosened the straps. I took them off. But if I had the straps on it, you can see I don't have any pin in here. This pin that goes in to hold it. I can't get it in the lower one. I'd have to jack it up higher. If the pin was in there, it'd be all right. Now, if I let this set overnight, this hydraulic jack will bleed down, and that bike's going to go towards a kickstand or towards a lift, one way or the other. But you can't leave it set like that all night. So I take it clear down and let it on a kickstand. So you can see it's moving right now. It moved a little bit. That's bleeding down, just the way the bike without a pin in it. Once a pin in it, you let it down against the pin, it'll hold it. But it is, you can hear it. See, it's moving. It's bleeding down. So that's one warning on these lifts. Have the pin in it or have it clear down off the bike. It's going. And it's going towards the kickstand. But you can see, as I'm standing here talking about it, there it goes. It's leaning. So I got to hurry up and get it.